let's go ahead and start talking about what's the latest with the coronavirus vaccines. We got a number of questions here to ask, and let's start with this one first, because I can tell you this is, for me, this is the one that I'm most interested in. With Johnson & Johnson, the mega pharmaceutical company, has announced, just recently announced some late stage results for its the study on its COVID vaccine last week. We saw the efficacy was a lot lower. You know, you go from in the mid 90% from Pfizer and Moderna to in the mid 60s, right, for J&J. Can you tell us what it all means, and can J&J still win an emergency use authorization?
Yeah, well, yeah, first of all, absolutely. I do fully expect Johnson & Johnson will win emergency use authorization for their vaccine. Look, the efficacy rate was lower than Pfizer's or Moderna's, for sure. You're right. Pfizer and Moderna had mid-90s efficacy. Johnson & Johnson came out with an overall efficacy of 66%. So, you know, that doesn't look great in comparison, but there are a few things to keep in mind with J&J's vaccine. Number one, it's a single dose vaccine. So they're getting that efficacy after one shot, whereas Pfizer and Moderna were getting their higher efficacy after two shots. By the way, J&J is also evaluating a two-shot regimen as well. The results for it will be available later this year. So the main thing to remember is it's single dose. So that's really important because you get the protection a lot more quickly, and that's great. That helps us get to herd immunity, and I think that's going to be a big factor in them winning EUA very soon. The other thing to note with their vaccine is that in terms of how much it prevented serious cases of COVID, it was, I think, 85% effective.
Right.
And
that
that's
enormous.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, you know, I think we might have gotten a little spoiled. excuse me.
Well, I can remember, Keith, that when we first started talking about this, the expectation from the FDA was anything that was 50% efficacy or above would be considered great, right? That was, we're gonna approve it. We have to do something, right?
Exactly. And so, you know, I think when Pfizer and Moderna came out with their 94%, 95% efficacy, everybody was thinking, okay, that's what we need to expect. Look, our flu vaccines are only around 60% effective. So for a vaccine to be more than 90% is outstanding. It's staggering.
Particularly when you start thinking about the people that are most at risk of this as being a deadly illness. I think that's really important. Also, I noticed that, if I remember correctly, they provided a little more data that in the US, the efficacy rates were higher.
They were. That's the other thing to note with J&J's results. You know, these new variants that we were talking about earlier were in the mix for their clinical study to a much more significant degree. We don't even know how much the new variants, if at all, were part of the Pfizer and Moderna studies. Mm-hmm. And so their results were brought down in particular by their studies conducted in South Africa, where the efficacy was only 57%. Right. But in the US, the efficacy was 72%, which is, you know, better than their overall efficacy. So this is a good vaccine. I think it's going to be on the market soon. I think it's going to help make a difference. I think it's going to help us get to that herd immunity, whether that's November or next year, whatever the case may be. I think it's going to be an important vaccine.
I think particularly when you consider that this is Johnson & Johnson in terms of their capacity and their scale to deliver a product to market, that has to just be something that people need to be paying attention to.
Right. You know, one thing interesting that most people might not realize about Johnson & Johnson, though, is that they only have one approved vaccine right now.
Wow. No,
they haven't been big in the vaccine market.
It's not their thing, right?
It's not their thing. They're getting into it, but it hasn't been their thing historically. But they are so big. They're the biggest healthcare company on the planet, and they obviously have the financial resources and the technical expertise to target whatever area they want to. And I'm glad they're getting into vaccines. I think it's a good thing.
And their logistics, just their simple scale, I think is really, really valuable in this.